Good morning, everybody. This is Dana B with Charlie M and KJG, Kent G. We are the 3% here for Mountain Patriots Educational Ministries. And we have a really special guest on this morning, Dr. Sheila F for Virginia for Medical Freedom Alliance. And we're going to get into some really stick with us, guys, because this is a really, really important topic. A lot of stuff that people don't talk much about recently, but is extremely important to you, your kids, your family, and your health. But before I turn it over to Kent, I want to invite everybody to our Wake Up Winchester number 8, our Health and Freedom Conference, which is at 252 Costello Lane at the Bingo Hall, as we say there in Baltimore, the Bingo Hall. But we're going to have some fantastic speakers. It's 11 o'clock to 7 o'clock. You can go to wakeupwinchester.com. We're doing kind of a fun civics class because most people don't know who to vote for or why they even vote for the representatives they have. So we have people like the sheriff that'll be there explaining for 20 minutes what he does. Our delegates will be there. We have a clip from the commissioner of the revenue, the clerk. Um, it goes on. I mean, there's so many people that are going to be there. So within the essence of time, just make sure you go to wakeupwinchester.com, get a ticket, come on out. We have a pew pew raffle for his and hers. We're going to feed you because we think it's that important. It's not about making money. It's about bringing good, solid information to people that are out there. And I will add that Dr. Sheila Fury and our buddy Ann Tatus from Parent Team Sick, Virginia for Children's First, will be there also talking about topics like today and about the kids and about education. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to my buddy KJG, Kent, my 3% buddy. It's all yours.
Well, thank you, Dana, and good morning, everybody, and good morning, Dr. Fury. It's so good to meet you finally. I've heard some great things, and I'm going to tell you this, we got a lot of great questions to ask you today. But before we get started, why don't you give us a little bit about your background and how you got here?
Well, I began as an Iowa farm girl. So I grew up in a small town in Iowa. I actually didn't live on a farm. I was a townie, but I had 6 brothers, my mom and my dad, and one bathroom. So 9 people negotiating one bathroom was, I think, an accomplishment, and it carried me far. And so having grown up in that environment, really a small town, and working hard and understanding that it was up to me to choose where I was going to go and what I wanted to accomplish in life. And very early on, I had a love for science, and that took me to college and then to medical school, and ultimately into the field of psychiatry and then child psychiatry. I moved to Virginia in the year 2000. My husband and I have 2 children, and it has been a wonderful ride. And it's been a challenge, and especially in the field of medicine. But I think that the opportunities in medicine for those who really want to provide healing to patients, the doors are wide open.
Awesome. What are some of the good things that you've seen in your career, some positives into the world of medicine?
Well, I think one of the areas that I think is a tremendous positive, particularly in the field of child psychiatry, is being able to address learning disabilities and attentional disorders with non-pharmacologic interventions, staying away from the drugs, and that the brain has tremendous capacity, and that we can provide children and even adults who had learning disabilities as children, or those who have had head injuries, with targeted brain exercises that really literally grow their brains. So we can measure on MRI the size of different areas of their brain. And with targeted exercises, those areas grow. What happens then is that the children who have had difficulty with reading, writing, math can now do those subjects with ease. So we're building with these children and adults a neuronal foundation, so the network, the wiring that allows them to be successful, rather than what currently happens in the public school system or any school system, is that the children are told that this is just the way you are. We're going to give you a Band-Aid that doesn't work. So we tell children that if they can't tell time on an analog clock, that will give you a digital one, and that's good enough. The consequence of that is that it seals their reading comprehension. We tell children who have difficulty with handwriting that cursive handwriting isn't important because we live in a digital world. The consequence is that some of those children, and a large majority of those, have difficulty with speaking and reading fluency because they're the same part of the brain. So we can provide these children with targeted exercises that increase their attention, their concentration, their memory, so that they don't need medications and they don't need accommodations in school. So it takes them beyond the IEPs and the 504 plans that the school systems offer and poorly offer because they're designed to limit the success of the child. Mm-hmm. And this is why I think this area of medicine is so wonderful, is because it says to the child, you can achieve. And our goal with these children is to make it so that their brains are strong enough so that they no longer need accommodations. And it's not a fantasy, it's a reality. We cannot do that with every child, but we can do that with a lot of children. And further, when we also work with children who are autistic. Mm-hmm. And what I look at there is, if we can increase your capacities by 10%, 20%, that makes the difference. Yeah. That makes the difference between a child being totally dependent upon everyone else to a child who in many capacities will be able to self-advocate for themselves. Mm-hmm. And that's a huge accomplishment. So I don't put anybody off the table and say that we can't help them. What I say is just the degree of help and assistance that we can provide is based on that individual. And I like the fact that we can now, I have stepped away from treating patients as statistics, but treating patients as individuals. This is the key to medicine. Statistics don't apply to the individual. Statistics are when we're looking at large number of cases, but when it comes to the individual, no two patients are alike, and they must be treated differently.
That's excellent.
Wow.
I will say this.
You are helping
spot on
so
right
much
there
in this world of drugs first.
Yeah.
And the autism rate has been increased so much. When I was a kid, we didn't even know there was
1 in 100 that we didn't know. Right. That's like now 1 out of 31.
Yeah, now it's 1 out of 31 that have autism. So it's a strange increase. And I know there's RFK Jr. is out there chasing to find some of the reasons why and get rid of autism. But just knowing that you have the tools to grow somebody's brain, I find just totally fascinating. And that you have focused on the children. The children are our future, and the more we can help them do better, do more, solve problems, think clearer, is a wonderful thing.
Absolutely. I remember being a kid, Charlie, and I'm a hyperactive kid, but I learn quickly, and because Dana's sitting there like this, I'm still a hyperactive kid, okay, at 63. But the idea was my mother being an RN, geriatric specialist, education, what was she, a master's in education, said he needs to be put on Dexedrine. So I went from this vibrant kid and my father hated it. He was like, there's got to be another way. but they put me in also, Dr. Sheila, expanding the brain. I'll never forget this lady named Mrs. Frolinger that I went to see twice a week. And we're talking from kindergarten on. By the time I was in second grade, I was writing cursive and I was at a ninth grade reading level. And my father kept scratching his head saying, why are we giving him medication when he's got all this energy? Aren't we stifling his, that was a fight at home. Aren't we stifling his education here? Oh, no, this is the new medical way of doing things. So it is really good to hear that he was right. I can finally say he was right, and somebody like you, Dr. Fury, that's going down this huge rabbit hole and being able to pull this up to the surface is incredible. Kent, what else you have, my friend?
Gosh, I don't know. I don't know where to
I know
start,
you
but
do, especially when it comes to kids and this stuff. This has
but
been our biggest concern as the children
yeah, I
in
mean,
everything we do.
I'm Gen X, and I remember, if we were wild kids, but we had sports, we had an outlet, we would go outside, we would ride our bikes until the wheels fell off, and then there
Baseball
became a
cards.
slow, right, yeah, skateboard, I mean, all that stuff. We would build forts, play army, but there was a big change, and you started noticing kids being thrown on Ritalin because the parents couldn't deal with it. And when I say deal with it, deal with the hyperactivity,
Or the
and
teachers couldn't.
or the teachers couldn't, right? And they're just basically transforming kids into zombies. Uh, I'm really concerned now because I'm blessed with a 5-year-old, and she is the world to us. She's very energetic. Um, she's a go-getter, and she just recently made the cheerleading team here in Front Royal at 5. So we're getting ready to go to competitions, and we don't, we're like you, we're holistic folks. So we're really scared, or not scared, but we're really concerned with, we hear the horror stories in schools and that the schools are actually pushing medications, not telling the parents. I mean, look what they did to the folks in Loudoun County. You go to a school board meeting and you're a domestic terrorist. But this is something that my wife and I are concerned about, and it can get to the point where, we're on the fence whether we should homeschool or not. But thoughts on what is going on in the elementary schools? It was different when we were growing up. I mean, I hate to say that, but that is true. We didn't have
Completely
any of this
different.
nonsense and this whatever they're pushing on, this Marxist theory, and they're trying to basically revamp the world into some big globalist scheme. But your thoughts on what's going on in our school systems, and what can you recommend for concerned parents like ourselves?
Well, I want to go back a little bit and comment on the vaccines, okay?
Yeah,
Um,
great.
and
Yeah,
so what
That was my next question.
I'm going to
to
do
tie
them
in.
in reverse order, all right? And the reason is because the childhood vaccine schedule, when I was a child, I got 3 shots. All right. I remember when the vaccine was the measles vaccine was
Mhm.
introduced when I was in late elementary school. So my exposure to the childhood vaccine schedule was minimal.
Right, mine too.
Today's children and my own children, because I had at that point in my career bought the medical propaganda of that these are safe and effective. All right.
Yeah,
The average child gets 29 shots before the age of 2.
Wow.
Right.
unbelievable.
So the issue is that none of these shots were adequately studied, and none of them were adequately studied against a placebo.
Right.
Okay. So an inert substance. All right. So initially the vaccines were made with mercury. Now that they shifted that to aluminum, they said aluminum
Unbelievable.
is not toxic. Well, aluminum is toxic, and it's
All of it.
toxic to the
Yeah.
brain. And some of the ingredients in these vaccines directly go into cross the blood-brain barrier and
Pineal
accumulate in the
gland.
brain. And so our children are being exposed in their so-called well child visits
Right.
to and so you take a child into the pediatrician who is well, and then you give them shots
And they come out different.
And there are consequences for that. All right. And the issue, it doesn't affect every child. We understand that. But when Dr. Paul Thomas, who's in Oregon, reviewed his pediatric practice, and he looked at the differences in his own practice over 20 years, 20 to 30 years, of the children who were vaccinated versus the children who were not vaccinated. And in every single category, the children who were unvaccinated were healthier.
Yeah.
And then the medical establishment, in their wisdom, said there must be a problem with this. And it's just because that the children who were not vaccinated didn't show up for as many well-child visits.
Right.
That was false. When they reviewed the data, they actually attended more well-child visits because they wanted to prove that their children were healthier. Right. When we look at the Amish community, which does not vaccinate, you cannot find an autistic child.
No.
Isn't that
can't.
something?
Isn't that amazing?
Right?
Yeah.
We're conspiracy theorists.
When you don't see, the issue is not just autism, it's ADHD, it's dysgraphia, it's other learning disabilities, it's asthma, it's eczema, it's all of these chronic childhood illnesses, all of the allergies that young children have that are affecting them not only as children, but lifelong.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in fact, our so-called medical experts who, and I don't think that the majority of doctors seek to do harm.
No, they don't.
I think that there is a vaccine industry that says, oh, we can fix this. Well, for every fix, you have to remember there can be unintended consequences. All right?
Yep.
So if you're an engineer or you work in construction and you say, yeah, I can fix this, and you have some way that you jimmy the side of a building or an electrical wiring, yes, you can make it work, but what are the long-term risks? What is the risk of collapse? What is the risk of fire? All right. And all of those things.
Great analogy.
Have to be looked at. And so for our children, we are now seeing, and we have been for decades, the unintended consequences of mass vaccination, because our children are not developing the immune systems that they need. I think, it's my personal opinion, that as I evaluate my children that I have, and many of the children that I see are also learning disabled. So I may see them for anxiety, attention deficit disorder, bipolar disorder, other things. I am willing to put money on the fact that over 90% of those students, those children, are vaccine injured. And so this is my major concern. And I think that we have to, and it isn't just the danger of vaccines, it's what are the toxins in our environment? What are the toxins in our food? Looking at the sugar that students, our children are eating, that is in all of our food is loaded with sugar. How do we get natural food to our children and to ourselves? Looking at our water, looking at the air that we breathe, and then looking at the impact of electromagnetic radiation. So all of the screens that we're using right now, but what is the degree of exposure of the electromagnetic radiation that is within our schools, within our homes, and how much of an effect that has on growing children? So there's one thing to look at this from an adult perspective. It is an entirely different situation when you are looking at that with a pregnant mom who has a laptop on her belly, okay? Or developing children who have the laptop over their ovaries and their testes, okay? They are being exposed to electromagnetic radiation. And Robert F. Kennedy said that's the last place we want electromagnetic radiation. So the insults that the current generations are exposed to that are not only hurting their bodies, they're hurting their minds.
Mhm.
And we need to be conscious in our decisions as parents and grandparents about how we're going to either participate in the system and say, this is just the way it is, or are we going to make a bold decision and say, no, not for me and not for my children? All right. And I'm a big advocate of homeschooling and co-ops and, one room
There you go,
school.
Kent.
I don't care how you do it. I think that you get together a group of people who are like-minded.
And do it.
And this is where I think the role our churches absolutely need to step up to the plate and offer their facilities for schooling our children. All right. And so that if you're going to get a network together, you have a place to meet that may be in a home, but it may be outside of a home. But you work together and you don't minimize the capacities of parents. I've been at meetings
Mm-hmm.
where I've been school administrators or teachers who've said, well, that's beyond the capacity of a parent to teach their
No,
child.
it's
Wow.
not.
No, it's completely false.
Wow.
And so we need to be able to take back our power as parents and not relinquish it to a school system that doesn't have the best interest of our children at heart.
Mm-hmm.
Their interest is perpetuating a failed system.
I agree. 100%.
It's indoctrination.
And it's not
You know?
just that. It's not just that, but a lot of these churches, and I agree with Dr. Sheila, we've talked a lot about this. She knows Pastor Jack Stagman. I mean, we've all tried to pull this stuff together, and it's starting to happen. But a lot of these churches, the same reason they don't stand up for just the rights of the Constitution is because they've been put into that system, the 1913 system of 501c3. So you can't talk about this, or 501c4, or you lose this. So people have to get past that part of going, you know what? They may come after me. Well, they're coming after you in a very covert way as it is. And you're going, well, I don't want to rock the boat. I got to protect my. It's time, just like Mountain Patriots has done, to turn around and going, we're done. I mean, we can put together a school system. We can put together a podcast. We can put together a prep group. We can put together a church. We can work with the children. I mean, there's a lot that can be done. And Dr. Sheila is 100% right. It's time for people to get back into being part of this. And I'll share this with you, Dr. Sheila. We talked to a young guy yesterday who's running for school board. And he sent me something yesterday. And here's the problem. If there are, and not that I condone this or I'm advocating this, but if you have a child, if you make X amount of dollars, you can't get that child into a daycare center. You have to spend X amount of dollars to put them into daycare. So the parents are stuck in that governmental control part. And I was like, wait a minute. So she makes $5,000 too much. So now she's got to figure out how to make $15,000 to put her kid in childcare. People need to wake up and they need to become a part of this big, incredible grassroots movement to take back our country for our kids. Our parents did it. Our grandparents did it. It's our time to do it.
And I'm going to really shake the boat a bit. I think women have to reclaim motherhood.
Oh, it's not somebody else's job.
And I'm speaking as a physician and a mother and saying I made a lot of mistakes. And I bought women can be everything. We can't. We cannot I've never worked full time. Okay. And that was a deliberate choice in order to have me available to my children.
Right.
However, that was a lot. All right. And the idea that as a woman, you can work full time, take care of your children, and do it all, and go to soccer and baseball and every other event is an impossibility.
Absolutely.
And that you have to make tough choices. And so much of the world has minimized the importance of motherhood. And I'm not minimizing fathers, okay, in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
But the
Understand that.
mothers being at home, or a parent being at home, and being the teacher, the primary teacher of that child, is the greatest gift we can give our children. And to say that, well, I've got this big career. There is nothing. I don't care how many millions of dollars you may make in your life.
Can't change it. Can't buy that.
The most important thing that we have in our lives is our children. And we should value them, not dismiss them to the nanny.
Right.
And the nanny state of the government is the most dangerous thing that we can do. And we need to say, are our children sacred? And are we going to value their lives and the gifts that have been given to us? Or are we going to simply dismiss them and say, not only dismiss them, but dismiss our role as parents and say, well, the school just does that. No, the obligation was for the parents. The obligation was never for the school.
Mm-mm.
And if we accept that responsibility, and I think we want that responsibility, but we're waiting for an endorsement from somebody to say it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Don't wait for the endorsement. Do it.
Right. And the materialism. I mean, we've all been brought up since the 50s, 60s, and 70s on materialism. I want this. I want the latest and greatest new thing. So now mom and dad have to work to go do this, to give the kid that one thing, that vacation, or that one thing that's going to fry their brain. So it's all what a ingeniously set up system to dismantle everything that we've done. We all have roles in it. My father used to say, we're going on one vacation a year. This is how we do it. And the rest of the time he was at soccer or my mother was doing something. They were both doing something. And I look back and I miss having both of my parents, my mom around, those are the most attaching times of your life. But we've been sold a bill of goods on this materialism, and we just keep raising the bar so that people keep chasing that carrot so that they don't go back. So we're really fighting a double-edged sword here.
Well, I think one of the things where parents get roped in is when the child says, I'm bored, we feel we need to respond and fill that space. Now,
Mine didn't.
Back to when we were children,
here's your bike.
If we said we were bored, our parents would say, we got plenty for you to do.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Okay?
Yeah.
You can do the lawn, you can do the garden. Oh no, I'll ride my bike. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that riding the bike till the wheels fell off, building,
which is true,
forts, right?
True.
Building forts, all of the things that we did outside, we found things to do, and they were productive things
and creative
and inventive, right? Inventive and creative.
Yep.
And that these are the things that when we hand instant gratification to our children, how does that harm them? Oh. And what we want is for these children to be able to say, I can build that castle in my mind, and now I'm going to build that out of dough. I'm going to build that out of mud. I'm going to build it out of snow, whatever it is. And that they can, they played roles and character roles. All of these things, this creative play is lost from our children because they're handed an iPad or another tablet of any kind, and they go, oh, I've got this game. I'm going to play this game. And we put the value on the game rather than on the interactions between our child and other children, or the child and the parents.
Wow, this is
All
so
of that
important.
interaction is lost. And like when you go to a restaurant and you see everybody on their cell phone, that in dating relationships, I have to clarify whether they're talking face to face or they're texting. Right? I never imagined people will say, "Well, I was talking to my girlfriend," and I said, "Okay, hold it. Were you talking face to face? Were you texting? Were you FaceTiming?" Because one of the problems with texting in particular
Can't
is
see
that
it.
affect is lost or it's misinterpreted. So
Everything's misinterpreted.
if something gets in all caps, well, does that mean it's angry? Does it mean they're happy? All right. And so disagreements occur because people don't know how to talk to one another. They
You
don't know
totally
how
miss body language.
And the
right.
body language, the eyes. Remember, just a
The re-
mask during COVID. You
the
didn't know
reactions.
what
Correct.
a big thing during COVID. I didn't know whether Dr. Sheila or Charlie was happy or sad or smiling or, I mean, they've taken all of that away. We've got to get it back. Great points. Great points. Are you ready for a commercial, Charlie, real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. I just want to make sure because Dr. Sheila is going to be here. So I just want everybody to see what I've got here. If I can get this up on my screen, tell me when you can see it. Are we there?
It's trying to. Yeah, there it is.
There we go. Okay. Couple things. This is our wakeupwinchester.com site. There's a lot of things that are on here. We want to keep people engaged. Just so you know, a lot of us, like my wife and I, we quit working. There is no income. This was more important to us than anything because we figured if the new order took over, we wouldn't have a life anyway. So it really didn't make a difference. So we threw all our cards in. Everything on here, you'll see Frederick County Board of Supervisors, Small Business Freedom Alliance. We're adding all of the school board meetings that are on here, all the different activities that are happening. But on the right-hand side, you will also see all of the videos that are here, all of our podcasts. You'll see that what we did yesterday. There's Doge, child trafficking. We take you through just about everything. Headmaster's homeroom, and I know you know who that is, Dr. Sheila. You know who Lady Hamilton is.
Yes, I do.
She is fantastic. She is a true educational patriot. Charlie's on here. Kent goes on tonight, but I just want to bring this up so you know where to find all of the videos. Now, Wake Up Winchester is coming up. It's on the 8th from June 28th. 2025 from 11 to 7. Tickets are $25 at the door. We are asking for donations. You can just make donations to the site so that we can keep this going. This is not a cheap endeavor, folks. It just isn't. But everything is on here. Here's your Wake Up Winchester. There's our banner. We have Dr. Sheila Fury. We have Ann Tatus. We have our elected representatives. They work for us, and they're going to explain not what they do to us, but how they work for us, and we'll be able to ask them questions. On the right-hand side, you'll see our Rumble channel and our YouTube channel. So anything that you want to know on what we've gotten done or who the candidates are, which is extremely important, and I'll drop this in there when I talk about candidates. People will say, "Hey, Charlie, who are you voting for?" Well, I'm voting. Why are you voting for them? I like that way they are, and I know their grandmother. Okay. Well, what do they bring to the table? So we are actually doing podcasts so that you get an hour's worth of get to know that person, kind of like we're doing with Dr. Sheila today. You get to know what's going on, how they think, what's happening in the community, all the different laws, what affects you in the community. So please come out, register at wakeupwinchester.com. Come on out and see us. Check out our website. And with that, I will stop and I'll turn it off. And I want to thank you for letting me make that commercial break. Go Mountain Patriots Educational Ministries. We are a ministry. Isn't that right, Charlie?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What questions you have, Charlie?
Yes. So
this has been great.
Trying to figure out how we can make a difference, how we can do something to help you to Dr. Fury or just to help make a change in the direction that you're pointing for us. Um, how might we get into the brain, and I know you're in the business of growing brains, and how might we use that brain to get people active enough, show their concern about children, sh because they're our future, show our concern about people who are elderly, suffering the throes of vaccines and bad food additives, etc. What in your mind are you able to tell us on the outside of your profession what to do? Well, if we don't have a problem, but we want to help others, how can we do that?
We can always work with Dr. Sheila. She's a phone call away.
So
Yeah,
I think that beginning the process for everyone to begin to eat real food
we do.
and buy your food from farmers
Yeah.
directly and not at the grocery store. All right. To not drink your tap water. Okay.
Yep.
To get some sort of reverse osmosis filter so that you're not drinking the toxins that are in your food and the water supply. All right. And I think it goes beyond this. I think it becomes to a fundamental respect for life from conception to natural death. And here in Virginia, as you know, we are facing what I think is a cataclysmic election. And if we do
We need to do
not
something this year.
respect life and boldly proclaim it and protect it, what are we saying? All right.
Exactly.
And this election is really pivotal for the state of Virginia.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I think other elections have been also. But
This in particular.
we have become learned to be silent, been taught to be silent. Don't ruffle the feathers.
Mm-hmm.
Don't, that's their opinion and they're allowed their opinion. Okay, let's look at medical facts. Let's look at reality. The reality is that human life does begin in conception.
Amen.
Right? That is undisputed medical fact.
I am adopted. I believe that 100%.
And so when we look at the issue of abortion, what we are simply saying that it is okay to kill certain individuals,
Mm-hmm.
that you have permission to kill a child in the womb or after delivery if that's what the mother intended. All right. We have Ralph Northam, our former governor, a pediatric neurologist, saying, we're just going to make the child comfortable.
It's just.
All right. So let's think about that. When are we going to stop? And why are we doing this? All right. So one is we don't want to put a burden on a young mother. Well, I've carried 2 children to term. All right. Pregnancy is not this overwhelming event. All right. Women have been having babies since the creation of man.
Right.
And I worked up until days before the delivery of my first child. So why are they saying that a young mother is unable to do that? What they're saying is it's inconvenient.
Right.
All right. Does inconvenience allow us the right to murder another child? Okay. Lots of people in my life are inconvenient. All right.
We're all inconvenienced daily.
Correct. Patients call me at inconvenient times. Does that give me the right to say, okay, you're no longer my patient, or that, I'm just going to give you a special pill because you've been annoying?
Right.
All right. No. And so, and then you have the medical community, members of the medical community complicit in this and saying that there are medical necessities to abortion. So there are medical reasons why we absolutely need to kill the child in the womb. There are none. Okay?
I agree.
There are none.
I don't
And
care what
so
anybody says. I agree.
so the age of viability is 21, 22 weeks. That means that is if you look at a pregnancy is 40 weeks long.
Mm-hmm.
If you were at 20, 21, 22 weeks, you could deliver a child and they could successfully live outside the womb and develop. All right. The baby is small, but with neonatal intensive care, we have babies who have the odds are stacked against them. However, I know children who were born at 21 weeks and are alive today.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what we have to understand is, are there medical complications in pregnancy? Yes, but there are two patients, the mother and the child.
Right.
If the child needs to be delivered, all right, it can be delivered emergently within 20 minutes. All right. You can do an emergency C-section in approximately 20 minutes.
Right.
If that woman, so this is a life-giving choice. All right. The alternative is that we say this woman, her life is in jeopardy. We're going to perform an abortion. We're going to murder this child. All right. They have to dilate the cervix. It takes 3 days. Okay. So if you're taking 3 days to dilate the cervix to perform an abortion, is it truly a medical emergency? If it's really a medical emergency, if it's life-threatening, you act immediately.
There's something else in that instance. They also have to, there is now a market for body parts.
Yeah,
So they have to
$550 for a
turn,
skull.
so they have to turn the baby around to be a breech birth so that they can preserve the body parts and kill the baby before the head comes out.
It's all satanic. I'll just say it
And
like that.
and
This
and
is not God's way to.
my point is that it's more dangerous for the woman
Yeah,
to have to go through turning
yeah,
the baby around and having a breech birth.
Correct.
But it's all driven by money.
yeah.
It's absolutely driven by money. And that when you look at even children who have, there's a fetal malformation, okay?
Mm-hmm.
That life is no less valuable because they have a malformation of one kind or another. All
Right.
right. Because you have to think about life.
Right.
There is no guarantees in life. And when I was pregnant with my first child, they wanted to do an amniocentesis. And
Mm,
they said, I said, no, I'm not going to do that because the risk of miscarriage was
mm.
greater than the risk of anything being wrong. 3 times different doctors asked me about an amniocentesis. I refused. And by the 3rd time, I said, what piece of paper do I need to sign to get you to shut up?
Good for you.
The issue is, again, there are no guarantees. What are you going to do when your child is injured in a car accident at age 6? What are you going to do if your child is diagnosed with cancer? What are you going to do when your child gets any number of injuries or illnesses throughout their lives? Are you going to say it's inconvenient and it's their time to go? What are you going to do when every child enters adolescence and your hair turns gray? All right. And you say, I can't believe that they're challenging me. Okay. Does that give you the authority to kill them because they're inconvenient or they're causing you distress? All right. So at every step of the road, we are minimizing human life. When we minimize it at any any developmental stage, we minimize it at every developmental stage. And
Then,
this
well,
is
and continue that on to seniors,
correct.
assisted suicide.
So in Virginia, 2 years ago, the medical assistance in dying bill was only defeated by one vote. One vote. And if we only have to look at other states and to our neighbor to the north, Canada, to see the impact of medical assistance in dying. Because the issue is we can't, they're looking at terminally ill patients. Doctors get it wrong, all right? So you can say they have less than 6 months to live. I had a patient that I had who, when diagnosed with cancer, had a massive tumor in their brain as well as in their lung. They did no chemotherapy and lived well beyond anyone's expectations. And much of that time was without need of any kind of medical assistance. So doctors get it wrong, but further, it is whose discomfort are we trying to address? And too often it is coached to the person, the patient, as you don't want your family to suffer.
To have to deal with this.
Excuse me, life and families are inherent, the suffering is inherent in life. And if you love someone,
you do
watching
everything
them
you
die
can. Is
and
not
being a part of the death process is to be a part of suffering, but suffering because you love.
right.
Suffering is born out of love. And yet we're now turning that into something that is bad. I consider it an honor to be with a patient when they are dying. I considered it an honor to be at the bedside of family members of mine that died.
Yeah.
It is the greatest gift that we can give them.
Yeah.
And yet this is being minimized for convenience. All right. They also use chronic pain as an issue. This is not an issue. Chronic pain and severe pain at the end of life can be treated.
Mm-hmm.
And that what you are balancing is over sedation or management of the pain that can lead to death, okay? Or how cognitively alert the patient is. So if they're in severe pain, they may say, I'm okay with that. There are things that I want to do. There are people that I want to talk to. There are things that I
Right.
need to accomplish before my death. You can do that. As you manage the pain, yes, it can occur that management of that pain hastens the death, but your goal is not to kill. There's a big
To
difference.
keep them as comfortable as you can and let God do his thing.
Right. And
I went through this with both of my parents, 8 months apart. And it was an honor for all the stuff that they did for me to be there at their bedside all the way through, and my ex-mother-in-law all the way through, you know. And she thanked me. My ex-mother-in-law said, thank you. I said the Lord's Prayer at her bedside, and she said, thank you. Her last words, and she was gone on Mother's Day 3 minutes later. It's like,
yeah,
I'll never forget that. It's got, I I don't understand people. It's just how we've been indoctrinated to think, unfortunately.
and
You
we
know?
also have to ask is as we're, harvesting organs of babies,
Oh,
all right,
what a huge business.
what are we also doing that with people who are declared brain dead? And are
Yeah.
they really brain dead? And what is our concept of brain death? These are things in medicine, ethical things, moral things that must be reevaluated. And that when the push to have do not resuscitate or a living will, all right, how is that being manipulated by the medical establishment simply for convenience?
For what they want out of it.
And so I think there are some major fundamental issues, and why this is all so important in Virginia is not only the medical assistance in dying bill that will come back, but the HJ1. So the danger of
HJ1.
HJ1,
Folks, HJ1. Look it up, HJ1.
What is HJ1?
HJ1 is a constitutional amendment that is the Reproductive Freedom Act. It is not only allowing abortion until after birth. Okay, so that means that if a baby is born alive after an abortion, that there will be no mandate to provide that child with health care, life-saving interventions. It also allows all of the transgendered hormones, so hormone blocking agents, as well as cross-sex hormones, without parental consent. So neither one of these require parental consent. And then it also allows in vitro fertilization, all right, on demand. Okay, so that means that if you are a homosexual couple and you want children, that would be provided at taxpayer expense, okay? But it also allows for opens the doors to human trafficking, all right? Because there are no boundaries on any of this. Thus, if for lack of a better word, a pimp or a human trafficker brings a young girl in for an abortion or sterilization or cross-sex hormones or anything, no parental consent is required, number one. Further, any adult from another state or any adult who brings them to the procedure or to get the medication or drugs cannot be prosecuted. All right?
Now,
so
this is in the state of Virginia, right?
This is what will happen in the state of Virginia if this is allowed to go
This
through.
is a big fight, guys. This is a
And
huge
the
fight for
danger
us.
is, so what people believe is, so it passed the first round. The
Right.
second round will be in
2026.
January, February, March 2026. However, if the Democrats retain control of the House and the House of Delegates as well as the Senate, it can pass into law
Without.
and get the signature of the governor and become law in the spring of 2026. And then the icing on the cake is that in November of 2026, it becomes part of our Constitution. So it is the ultimate evil. So that both of these, the bills for abortion, transgender hormones, and in vitro fertilization could become law in the spring of 2026 and part of the Constitution in the fall of 2026. This is the danger of this. And people are buying the rhetoric of this is just a woman's choice. All right? We look at what is happening with the trans agenda and the sterilization of our young men and women. All right? The basic biology is being denied. When you cannot change your biological sex. It is not something that is assigned at birth. All right? We don't assign our sex. Our sex was decided at the moment of conception. It cannot be changed. And this whole concept that we knew in utero that we were the opposite sex, wrong, you did not, okay? But look at the impact we're giving to children and the power that we're giving to children when we say you get to decide which sex you are. All right. The danger of this is what other realities, what power, we give them this unlimited power as a child to say, I'm God, I get to decide whether I'm a girl or whether I'm a boy, and I can become that. So if that is the power that they possess, what other power do they possess? They become their own God. They're in charge of everything in their life because they get to dictate it. There are no rules, there are no boundaries. This is not childhood. And you're putting upon this child adult responsibility of things that they do not have the capacity to fully understand. If you have a child who is deciding, I'm now going to be a girl or a boy, and they're less than 8 years of age, they have no concept of death and the permanency of death. So they are literally saying goodbye and the end of their own future as a female or male, because it will end their fertility. It will end their cognitive development,
So with
right?
medical problems forever.
Medical problems forever. They will continue to be a part of an experiment, because that's what it is. They do not have the capacity to understand that. And yet you have physicians, lawyers, teachers, administrators, all kinds of people who are in it for the money.
And they're pushing this.
It's indoctrination.
It's a billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar industry that only continues to grow.
This increases suicide rates. You wonder
All of
why
it.
there's so many women are depressed nowadays. I've been watching a lot of Charlie Kirk and Liberty Hangout. Women are very depressed. It's sadness, it's anxiety, and the cure is they're not being what they're supposed to be. You know, he says the cure is be a mom, go out and have
Yeah.
children. It will change your
Right.
life. It's the
And
greatest
what they
thing
do
ever.
to what they do to these children is when you get into the trafficking side of it is just absolutely unconscionable. There's one person that comes to my mind, and we've been following this for about 10 years. Barbara and I, we've done so much research on this, and I'm so glad you laid it out like this for us. There's a young kid named Devin. And Devin, you can see where they painted a wall with yellow, green, red, orange, and it's got black lines through it. Okay. And then they painted Devin so he blended in with the wall. And he's talking about all these different drugs that they're giving him. And he goes out and he throws the boa around his neck and he wants it. And he said, these two guys are raising this kid. And Barbara and I literally sat on the sofa one night and broke into tears over this kid. And I'm not I'm an emotional person, but when you see something like that, I could tell you other stories, but that one always sticks in my head, what they did to this particular kid and then put it out there. And it's all okay for vice presidential candidate Tim Walz to go out there and do it. I mean, it is just absolutely, it's insanity. And we have got to do whatever we can to protect these kids. Dr. Sheila, let me, go ahead, Charlie, because we got to kind of wrap up. I know you got another question.
Yeah, I do. I do. I have a question of when a child says, when a girl when a girl says, I want to become a boy, or a boy says, I want to become a girl, why don't we treat them with adding estrogen to the girl and testosterone to the boy instead of doing the opposite?
First, we have to understand what context they are saying this in.
Right.
Right. And I think that's the most fundamental question.
That's the psychology
And
part.
when we look, if we go back to, the first use of gender identity disorder, it was only seen in cases of extreme abuse, okay, and or psychosis, okay. So, and that has rapidly changed for multiple reasons. But that's the fundamental, is this child being abused? Where does this thought come? And then we have to put ourselves in the framework of the child. All right. I grew up with 6 brothers. Okay. Playing sports was a means of survival. All right. And
Yep.
I took a questionnaire about, am I trans? Okay. And the questions are slanted to get a designed outcome. All right. Did you ever think of being the opposite sex? Well, yeah, but I knew I wasn't the opposite sex, nor did I want to become that. But now it is okay. If you see there are benefits to being a girl versus boy, does that mean you can become that? All right. Or is it a case of you want a relationship, you're a young child and you have a crush on a girl or a boy, but that person is blowing you off, okay? They want to play with the girls or the boys on the playground, but you want to play with them and you have the wrong sex at that developmental age, all right? Well, what you want is a friendship. You don't, and you think that the only way to achieve friendship with the opposite sex is to change your sex. Well, you can't do that. And so I think a lot of this is just a fundamental misunderstanding. But I also think, and what you need to know is one in four girls is sexually abused before the age of 18, and approximately 1 in 20 or 16 to 20 boys is sexually abused before the age of 18. And you place this in an environment what is rampant with pornography. These children are confused, and we need to be careful. Estrogens and testosterone can be helpful in some cases, but unless you have a full endocrine workup, I would never go that route. And I would further look at what are the endocrine disrupting drugs that you can be taking. And I'm going to specifically point to antidepressants, stimulants, and antipsychotic drugs that have a direct impact on the endocrine system. And we also live in an environment that has a direct, our plastics, things in our water also have a direct impact on our endocrine system. And so getting rid of the toxins in our environment may actually cause healing to occur because their testosterone or estrogen is then allowed to function at a normal level.
Mm-hmm. But
So nothing,
fluoride,
the
look at
bottom
the
line
stuff in
here
our
is
water.
there's
Just
nothing is simple.
nothing is
Nothing is
simple,
simple. What we
but
need
doable.
to do is bring fundamental rules and understanding of basic biology back and not experiment on our children.
Yes.
And most children who have some confusion about their gender identity, by the time they complete adolescence, will have gone through that confusion without any intervention at all.
Yep. That's life.
Yes.
This has been excellent. Dr. Fury, I can't thank you enough. I mean,
Yes. Thank you.
we could talk all day with you. I'm serious. And I appreciate it. Kent, do you have any final comment, or Charlie?
I do.
Okay.
I'll go
Didn't
out
want
on
to
a
leave you out.
positive. I go out on a positive note. I was
Yeah.
going to ask you, what is a woman? Apparently, they can't answer that nowadays. But in addition to that, thoughts and recommendations on natural supplements we should be taking instead of getting medicated.
So I can say this with, it is not medical advice. Okay. These are just simple things that
Yep.
people can do that can be very helpful. Have an adequate vitamin D level. All right. Vitamin D is really a hormone,
Yes.
but we need it in the body. We need adequate amounts of vitamin D, and it is the building block for all other neurotransmitters in the brain.
Okay.
The B vitamins are particularly important for the brain. B12 not only helps you build blood, but all the B vitamins help the brain function better. I love vitamin C because it helps support the immune system. I like magnesium, And I like it. I also like all of these things from natural sources, but magnesium for people who have anxiety, sleep disturbance, things like that. But again, I go back to fundamentally, if we can clean up the environment in our house, if we can clean up our food, many of us, if we make healthy choices, if we get outside, we exercise, we pull ourselves away from screens, we have connections with other people, our anxiety goes down, our sleep becomes better. When we have the support of intimate relationships and people that we trust, and above all, we know that God exists and that we have a relationship with God and that we understand that our God is the source of our life. And that if we do not have, if we consider ourselves God and we put the entire burden of life on our own shoulders, we will become anxious, depressed. But when we have a relationship with God, when we recognize that we are in a universe with a God that loves us and cares about us and has a personal relationship with us and wants us to be happy and successful, but it's not so much happy in the sense of joy, la, la, la. Okay. It's happy in the sense that we are in a loving relationship with God and we recognize the power of that love.
And contentment.
Yes.
Amen. Amen. I think that is the greatest place to stop this. And I have to say, we are going to have Dr. Sheila on again. We're going to definitely have you on again. This was excellent. And your co-buddy, Ann Tatus, will be on in the next couple weeks as well. But I want to take this real quick time again to remind people, come out, see Dr. Sheila, listen to her, get a chance to talk to her. This will be on June 28th from 11 to 7. From the Liberty Man, we have George Washington that's going to be there to get things started off. We've got the Clouds. We have Dr. Sheila. We've got Ann Tatus. We've got, it's going to be an incredible day. It's going to be an incredible day. And let's get this country back to the way it's supposed to be. We are God and country. That's our Constitution was written. This is all written on biblical principles. And hopefully we're strong enough. We need more warriors like the folks that are on this podcast to take this out to the masses. I mean, I was told that Satan's greatest trick is convincing people that he doesn't exist. And he does. But you know what? There's one that's greater, and that's God the Father through Jesus Christ, and that's our educational ministry. So I want to thank everybody for doing this today. We are the three, Charlie, Kent, and I. We do this as many times as we can. Dr. Sheila, we love you. We really do. I mean, a lot of guys are like, they were excited about having you come on today, and we cannot wait to get this out. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Doctor. We appreciate it.
Thank you
Glad to
very
do it.
much. And Charlie, we are Mountain Patriots Educational Ministries, and we have our own Mountain Patriot prayer. So if you'll close us out with that, please.
Will do. Thank you, Dana. Let us pray. Dear Lord, thank you for this beautiful world and the country that you have given us, and the patriots who are willing to care for it. Thank you for inspiring our founders to create this beautiful republic. Please help us to keep it. To keep it as the aspiring place to live. Please give us the wisdom to do the right things, the common sense to judge wisely, the energy to never give up, and your unending grace in which we take comfort. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, everybody. It's a wrap for another Mountain Patriot Educational Ministries educational podcast. We look forward to seeing you all again soon. Thanks a lot, and God bless.
God bless.